Alrighty, folks. So how many people here know anybody that has depression or suicide? Raise a hand. How about depression first? Who goes through depression? Don't be shy. Everybody has been depressed in their life. Everyone. What about suicide? Do you guys know anybody personally from experience, your neighbor, your friend who has committed suicide? Yeah. It should be more. I know some of you are shy, you don't want to share. So I'll give you guys a story real quick. Back in Afghanistan, I had a cousin who was 21 years old. He shot himself. He shot himself about 6-7 times. So the story behind that is that my aunt got married to her husband. He would leave the relationship, so he was out of the picture for at least, let's say 6 months out of the year, or every year he would come back. And then when he kept doing that, my cousin, by the time he turned 21, he would have a lot of people coming in and telling him, basically when we say in Dari, که پدر کجاست؟ به پدر هستی. ایگاپا در افغانستان بسیار زیاد است. اون بیچاره طفل است که در فکرش بسیار فشار میآید و فکرش بسیار خراب میشه. So what had happened was over the years this kid could not cope. You know, hearing stories about his mother who would stay with him, who would work hard, they would see her mother get beaten, get left out. The community did not support her. I'll be honest, my own family didn't support her either. Because back home, what they do is once you're married, you don't belong to the family anymore. You know, in the Muslim community, especially the religion of Islam, tells us, you know, any child that is yours, it's your child. It is your fard to take care of your kids and the kids to take care of your parents. So what had happened was after 21 years, he couldn't take the pressure. He took a gun and he shot himself about 6-7 times. But that's just the story that I want to give you, and I'll go ahead and explain and talk to you guys about some of the clients that I have who had tried committing suicide in front of me, who I do have, okay? So I'll give you guys stories about that too. So let's get started. Yes, so a little bit about us. My name is Wali Abdul Hanfzai. I migrated to the United States in the year 2000, coming from Afghanistan to Peshawar and to now in America. So currently, I'm a doctorate student at Pepperdine University studying global leadership and change. I want to be able to help our Muslim community and our Afghan community make a bigger impact in the bigger world. Because a lot of us do small work. I'll be honest with you, I work with the Shura Council of Southern California that has ties to majority of masjids in San Diego, in Los Angeles, in Orange County. Very young community. We're all very young. We've been there for 20 years, but we're a very young community. So our goal is to ensure that our Muslim community, and specifically either you're Afghan or wherever you're from, it's to ensure that you guys or your kids become assets. Anywhere you go, you can make a positive change in your life. So that is what my degree is in. And inshallah, that's what I'm trying to do, is to help ensure that our future generations become an asset. That's the goal. That's the goal. And outside of that is that I'm a therapist. You see the logo there, Genesis Medical Center. I work there as a therapist. I provide therapy to children, adults, families, couples, and so on. So, Mama Jump, good.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. So again, I want to welcome everyone, and I hope that you guys enjoy our presentation on depression, suicide prevention today.
You know what? I don't think I'm comfortable with this mic because it's giving me this echo. So can you guys hear me if I talk without it? Yes. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
thank you. So my name is Lamba Aziz-Hanifzai, as Wali mentioned earlier. No? Loud enough? Can you hear me? How about now? Yes. Can you hear me now? No? Okay, so I guess I might have to do this.
Tanisha, are you okay with the sound?
It's a little bit low, but if you guys prefer.
I will be switch sides. That would work on that hill.
Okay. How about now? Is this better? Okay. So, as Wali mentioned already, I am his wife, and we enjoy going out to the community and talking about depression and suicide prevention, as well as other mental health disorders, and just educating the community about these disorders to try and reduce the stigma. I'm currently myself in a doctoral program. Inshallah, I'm going to finish in a year and officially be a Dr. Lamba Aziz-Hanifzai. My current work right now is working with children and their families around all sorts of mental health disorders, whether it's depression, anxiety, behavioral problems at home, children talking back, parents not knowing how to handle their kids, their new lifestyles, acculturation, and very passionate about working with couples because growing up I had seen that as an issue in our community when individuals get married and start to have marital problems and everyone gives advice, but the couple becomes so overwhelmed that they don't know how to solve. So that's just a little bit about myself. So we'll go ahead and start off with the perceptions of mental health among Muslim Americans. And as we all already kind of know, Muslims generally think about mental health as a biological problem. So whenever there is anything that has to do with sadness or anxiety, a lot of our Muslims don't know that, these are mental health disorders. Instead, they think, oh, there's something wrong with me. If I'm having anxiety, I don't call it anxiety. I call it a stomach ache. If I'm having depression, I call it a headache. I label it with things like, I can't sleep at night, I have poor appetite, I feel sad all day. And then we go to the doctors and try to find the cure for it, find the medication for it, never realizing that the problems that we're having are stressors from our environment or the individuals, and the medication that we take can maybe reduce the stress in our body, but it doesn't make the problem go away until we talk to that other individual and try to solve the problem through talking to them. So in the Muslim population, something else that research has shown us is a lot of Muslims believe that mental health disorders, whether it's depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, these are due to, in a way, like the punishment from God. Like God is trying to punish us, so He's giving us a disorder. Or, the jinn has possessed us, and this is why we're acting this way, and we get labeled as crazy. There's something wrong with us at that point. And so a lot of our Muslims still have that perception in today's world that if you have a mental health diagnosis, you must not be a good Muslim. As well as those who are going and seeking mental health assistance also get shamed for doing that if they're going to try and solve the problems in their life. Individuals who in the community see them go and seek that assistance will start shaming them and spreading rumors and saying, oh, I saw so-and-so's son or so-and-so's daughter go to the counseling office, there must be something wrong with them. And then that impacts their futures. It impacts their future marriages and proposals, because if somebody asks about them, hey, is so-and-so's daughter a good person to marry to my son? The other individual will say, well, she goes to the counselor. And so there's bad stigma around that.
Do you guys ever hear this stuff within the community where they come out and people say, don't let someone know that I'm seeking therapy? Have you guys heard the norm where people kind of shy away? Or somebody else says, you know what, his son or his daughter might be crazy because he's seeking therapy. Right?
Or something else that we hear a lot is, these are our family secrets, these are our family problems. If we go to anyone outside the home, shut them us. Like, it's bad for our reputation.
And the other thing we want to do before we go on is a lot of people don't understand this. Can you guys hear my voice? Yeah. Okay, good. I don't need it. Thank you. So, number one key goal is that when you go to a doctor, right, everything is HIPAA compliant. When you come see a therapist, it's HIPAA compliant. No one's gonna know what is your name. They'll probably see your face, but they don't know what your name. They don't know the reason why you come to us. Let alone you might be coming to us just saying hi. So when you do come to therapy sessions, if somebody asks us and says, hey, does Lamba John, does she come to therapy? My answer is, I cannot state or I cannot tell you if she is or she's not. I can't do that by law. So remember, everything is HIPAA compliant. We do not share that information. Only you can. And the number two thing that I always hear within the community is that when you seek therapists, they change your mind. They tell you what to do. That is actually not true. We do not tell people what to do. What we do is we listen to individuals, their challenges, and their struggles. And then once they do, when they tell us all that, we help them take paths and come up with their own solutions on what can they do to better their lives. That's all. We do not tell them that because it is illegal. we can get our license taken away. Or we can get sued for that too. So please remember that. We don't give advice, and we just hear when we help them choose different paths in life. So now the other question, my question to everybody here, I'd like to make it more of a participative workshop. What is stigma? Stigma. One is dog. What is stigma?
Something that has a negative attachment to it.
Negative attachment, right? What else, guys? Don't be shy. There's no wrong answers to this. Please just give us your thoughts and comments. I got that. He made him away.
Something that has negative connotation.
Yes, negative connotation. And again, before we go more further, anything that we discuss here stays here. That is a part of our work. We ensure that if you discuss something with us, we like to keep everything within the circle. We don't want to go and share with others because we want you guys to be more comfortable with what you guys share here, right? That's a part of the program. So anything else, any other stigmas? There's a lot.
What about something is not in your way?
Something is not a hustle.
In your way.
Something that does not go our way?
Yeah.
Okay, so something, are you saying that's like
So like
choices are already made for us? And
Yes, something like that.
Something out of your own
I
hands.
want it this way, but it doesn't happen like that.
Because there's some other factors because of it.
Exactly.
So I'm hearing you say it's like out of the ordinary, right? Like if we look at our culture, there's a lot of traditions that we have, and if we go outside of that, then that can become stigmatized because it's not the normal path, right? It's out of the ordinary. Yeah.
What else?
Negative feelings, right?
Yes, negative feeling experiences. Anybody else? Maybe two more, that's it? I'll move on. Yes, sir.
Something that other people think bad about you.
Somebody thinking bad.
Something which is shame, which would bring shame to you.
What change?
They will think that you are not good to be part of it.
So somebody basically excluding you from the group. So social isolation is another one, folks. Good? We'll move on. So again, stigma is a powerful social force which allows one group of people to exclude or discriminate against another group. So how does stigma impact people who struggle with mental health disorders and their families? Number one, it lowers a person's motivation to seek help. If I get stigmatized, I don't want to go and seek help. You know why? Because I know that if I go seek help, somebody's going to say, look at you, I told you, you have some problems, you're, جو تعرف كيف مرة تربية يعني يومين أيضا تكليف رواني أيكون في الشهر أنا في الشهر قارن مثلا 12 يوم كان بيوم كم أكمل من الدكتور أصاب كرة حتى يعني أنا كده وقت سكوت لي كده يعني نماذج من القار ماشي خلف بين دكتور هيقار أصلا كم أكمل وبيجاني ما تكليف أصاب مرة في وانا نسمع يعني مين بقى ميجان مين
That's the problem with especially our Afghan community. If there is a small psychological problem, there is a small problem in the family. If you say to ask a marriage counselor, a psychiatrist, they say, I'm not crazy, I don't want to go. That's the main problem. But other cultures, they go and seek help and they get treated.
Perfect. So a part of that is that what they do is, with our community, Afghans, I know this, we always think of the worst alternative, right? If something happens, we always think of the most biggest.
We catastrophize.
Yeah, we catastrophize. So it doesn't allow us to make those positive changes within that. And number two is that, so you guys know, when you guys come to therapy, it's actually good. The reason why I say that is that we'll go ahead and we'll sit with you. We'll talk to you. We'll see what are your problems, your challenges, what is it that's bothering you and bugging you, okay? It's like we help you set up goals for you so that you can achieve. Medication does not come there. Medication after is looking at you and seeing, what are your diagnoses. For instance, there's certain individuals who do need medication in order to function. So then we'll go ahead and refer you out to a psychiatrist. But if you look to a psychiatrist, that's something very different. Based on their experience, they'll go ahead and prescribe or might not prescribe medication. But I know a lot of families are afraid of that too. They don't want to even see psychiatrists. So when they say psychiatrists and counseling, it's like, no. there's a method outside of that, that's just general counseling. Okay? Number 2, causes an individual to feel ashamed for needing help. That's general. Lowers self-esteem, discourages people from staying in treatment, and therefore lowers their chance of recovery. So it becomes very difficult for that individual to seek help and to road to recovery. And then families are afraid of being judged by the community and will hide the member who is struggling with a disorder. Again, like I said, it's the same thing. And another example I'll give is that, let's say if I don't have kids yet, but if I have a daughter who seeks counseling, I know automatically what will happen if somebody knows my daughter goes and seeks counseling. Let's say even if she's young, she's 22, 23. A person, let's say a family says, we might be interested in marrying this girl. The number one thing that person could say, well, no, they seek counseling, so there's something wrong with her. So that automatically shuts the door on the innocent individual, just because of not knowing what they're going there for. And then lastly, family may not seek help for members who are struggling as well.
So some other barriers for seeking help is no insight. We may not know that we are suffering from a behavioral health disorder. So going back on that biomedical problem, which is, in Afghanistan, we have a lot of doctors, and we always go to doctors whenever we break an arm or our stomach's hurt, or if there's any kind of problem in our body, we always go to a doctor and think it's a biomedical issue. So in our community, what we're trying to do is psychoeducate, raise awareness of other disorders that may not be related to the biomedical model. The ones that are caused by the environment, that are caused by stressors, and can be also caused by how you're brought up. If your parents are depressed and you're around them and you grow up in that environment, you learn how to cope with problems, and you might cope with them the same way your parents did. So your risk for being depressed becomes higher. Some other barriers that we have are denial. So kind of like what Wali John said, some people will deny that they even have a mental health disorder, and they will deny receiving assistance for that. They'll say, no, I'm not crazy, so I don't need this help, that's for someone else. Some people cannot afford the services, and this is something that we will talk about at the end of the program. We have some resources for you guys, because there's always help available, whether it's being paid by private insurance, by cash, by Medi-Cal, by Medicare. There's always assistance available. And as well as some people are not aware of resources, and we'll touch on that at the end of the program as well.
So, as you guys can see, I like pictures, and I like to pick people's brains. So what do you guys see here? It is, yes. It's an iceberg, right? What does this tell you?
Exaggeration.
Exaggeration.
Of what?
A lot of stuff you don't see.
The shadow.
A lot of stuff you don't see.
A lot of stuff you don't see. Can you give me more on that? How so?
We'll have something bad, blow it out, and then make it.
No, we don't want to blow anything up. Yes, yes, that is true. We have, just, as you can see, it's a big iceberg, right?
Right. So I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
This is her.
From the surface, it looks very solid, like us human beings, very solid, very strong.
Yeah.
At the knee, it's actually a very fragile piece of ice.
Yeah. So
my question was, if there was a boat on top of the water and it could only see the top part of this iceberg, what do you think that captain in that boat would think? Would they think this iceberg is kind of small, or do you think they would think it's big? They only see the top. Small, right? So they may think, oh, like this is not so bad, like that's not a problem at all, not even knowing that there's so much going on down below, right? And so let's connect that to a person now.
So same thing for a person. When you meet somebody, right? How much do you know about them? How many? Probably 10% to 15% of that individual. When you see somebody in the masjid at workplace, salam, how are you? You give them your name. How are things? How many family members do you have? That's it, right? Nobody talks about their challenges, deep challenges. So this is an analogy of telling you guys, this is basically the surface. What's underneath is there's much more. underneath an individual as well that we don't know, how their struggles and their challenges are in their lives. So now we're going to go ahead and give you guys some stats. Suicide death in 2016, this is the most recent research that we have through NAMI, Didi Hirsch, and what they have said that 9.8 million people have thoughts of suicide. 9.8 million people, yearly. This is like a yearly report that is being done. And these are folks that have been captured. There's a lot of people that do not report, that keep it to themselves. And then with that, for instance, out of the 9.8 million people who have thoughts, 1.3 million people try to attempt to kill themselves, to get rid of their lives. 1.3 million. Out of those, about 45,000 people actually do complete suicide rate. So they do go ahead and they end up their lives. So now the question is, do the numbers tell the full story? Yes or no?
No.
No, it doesn't, right? It does not. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. And then we'll go ahead and talk about, which the figures are even more severe for the youth and children. And that might be shocking for you guys. Most lethal means is a firearm that they use. 59% of people who die by suicide die during their first attempt. And then again, anybody can be at risk. Now I have something for you guys before we go to the next slide. Research has shown that there's more men, there's more women who commit suicide compared to men, okay? In comparison, there's more women, sisters, who commit suicide than the brothers. But the report shows that men complete suicide more than women.
There's more attempts.
Why is that? I like this part. This part is fun.
Men are more decisive.
What?
So men are more successful at completing suicide.
So, thank you. Yes, we are the ones always doing it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Women cries, women explains, women tell a friend or relative, man keep it inside. That's built up.
Yes.
Yes, women cry, but there's also a big gap of lack of communication for women. Expressing themselves to man, and man being, of course, introverts and not expressing themselves.
Yeah. So, all of you, thank you so much for your answers. Unfortunately, you guys are wrong. That's right, to a certain degree. I asked you guys, what is the reason why there's more women trying to kill themselves, but there's more men completing suicide?
Men are decisive.
So more men are successful at
They're very
completing
decisive,
suicide.
yes. So the answer here is that men use lethal form of items to kill themselves. They use a firearm, they use a gun, or they hang themselves. Women, on the other hand, take medication or they cut themselves. So by the time paramedics, 911 comes, men are dead. The sister has more time. I love your answer. I get that all the time. It's all because of them. Some are true. Some are true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we look at our youth, studies from a data collection in 2016 have indicated that 436 people between the ages of 10 to 14 years old die by suicide. About 2,000 people at ages between 15 to 19 also die by suicide. 36,000 people between the ages 20 to 24 die by suicide. One young person every 1 hour, 32 minutes kills themselves. It's the third leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds. It's the second leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds.
These figures in the United States?
Yes.
In the United States.
These are reported that figures that are captured by research institutes. And so the numbers are much higher, so that not a lot of people report.
Yeah, so again, people who want to hide that they have, depression or suicidal thoughts, they won't report this. So this is from those individuals who have filled out the surveys indicating, yes, this is something I struggle with, or this is something that has happened with my family. So in reality, the numbers are much, much higher than this.
And this includes our community too, so it's not just, this is America, like we're part of America. So this works for, the Muslim community, the Christians, the Jewish community. Everybody is covered, no matter what religion or ethnicity you're from. These are the total numbers.
The reason I asked because the others said that for cancer, they don't have to consider the other people are telling them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. So what are some risk factors for suicidal ideation? And if we're able to figure out what the risk factors are, maybe we can assist those who, struggle with suicide ideation or depression, maybe we can assist with them. So some of the risk factors include social isolation. So in our older adults, it could be not having friends, not having anyone to call to talk to. Back home in Afghanistan, we knew our neighbors. We were able to go over and invite them to our events and just go over for tea. But we live in the U.S. and we don't tend to live door by door anymore. We live really far away. So social isolation tends to be something that happens in our older community, older generation. In our younger generation, social isolation happens through bullying. Whether it's bullying at home with relatives who may make fun of the child for not speaking Pashto or Dari, or it's at school being bullied for the kind of clothes they wear, if they grow a beard, if they wear a hijab, if they have an accent. It makes those kids feel isolated. It makes them feel so lonely, like no one can understand them. And that becomes a risk for them becoming depressed and attempting to commit suicide. Another one is alcohol and drug problems. So individuals who struggle with substance use typically are using the drugs, the alcohol, to try and medicate themselves to make that pain go away that they're going through. So every day they're waking up and feeling like life is pointless and I just feel numb and I feel empty. They take those drugs, they take those alcohol to try and get rid of that feeling, but at the end of the day, they're just numbing themselves. That problem, it never goes away. And aggressive tendencies or impaired impulse control. Wali John already talked about access to firearms, but the aggressive tendencies is something also you touched on. Getting mad really quickly, like even if you struggle with depression or suicidal thoughts, when somebody reaches out to you, you just shut them down. Or you tend to have angry outbursts. You react so quickly that people don't want to reach out to you anymore. And that also isolates you.
Other risk factors, history of attempted suicide. So, for example, if somebody within the family, took away their life by suicide, the likelihoods are much higher that somebody within that family will attempt the same thing. So remember that. Exposure to physical abuse, verbal abuse, or bullying, like Lamba Aziz mentioned it, especially within the youth. There's a lot of bullying that is involved. I know Kerala came out with their study, and they showed that about 40% of teenagers in the Muslim community are being bullied. And this was research that was done throughout Southern California by Brother Osama Nush. So do remember, especially for our younger generation, let us know when you do get bullied, or let your parents know, let the teachers know. It is very important because that will play a negative impact in your studies. This is why certain times kids don't do well. That's one of the aspects, is that they're bullied. So whenever they go to school, their mind is focused, who's gonna make fun of them, who's gonna hit them. These are the factors that go through it. Chronic pain or major physical illness. These are individuals who have, for instance, have cancer and serious illnesses where psychologically, I know biologically that affects an individual very quickly, but even psychologically, they want to end their life as soon as possible because of the pain, because of the torture that they go through. Biggest risk in suicide completion, having a depressive illness. Individuals with depressive tends to feel helpless about solving their problems, which leads to feeling hopelessness.
So most of you are probably wondering, so what is depression? What categorizes depression? What does it look like? How can we even know if somebody's depressed?
Do we have somebody who help us out? Anybody want to help us out?
Definitely.
Just take one row. Symptoms of depression. These are the symptoms which is within a circle.
Sadness, anxiety, guilt, anger, mood swings, feeling of helpless, and irritability.
Yes. And these are all your emotions. Okay, these are your emotions.
So, should we kind of cover each one as we go? So as we're looking at emotions, feelings of sadness, we tend to ask our clients, how often are you feeling sad? Have you been feeling sad every day for the past 2 weeks? Do you feel like you're sad most of the day and you can't just snap out of it? That you wake up and you feel, well, what is the point of my life today? I don't want to get up and even go to school or go to work. People are around me and they're happy and they're laughing, but inside I feel so sad. I feel so empty, but I have to laugh along so nobody knows. With anxiety, we see a lot of worries, a lot of fears. Worries about not being able to fit in, to being isolated. Worries about the future, worries about the things that have happened in the past. Mood swings, that's something I see a lot when I work with kids and their parents. Their parents will always tell me, 1 second she's happy, and 1 second she's angry and I don't know what to do with her anymore. She just constantly has mood swings throughout the day. And we need to fix her. So we see that so much in patients who struggle with depression. Feeling of helplessness and irritability, feeling like you can't go on anymore, like nothing's ever gonna help you. Sometimes for them, it almost feels like even talking to their parents, to a scholar, nothing's gonna change. They feel like life is frozen.
So number 2, we'll touch bases on behaviors. Crying spells. You are crying constantly, no matter if it's daily, once a week, of that specific situation that took place. Let's say somebody had passed away in your household. You have to talk to them. You're crying. That's part of the behavior. Changing in personal appearances. If you notice that somebody used to dress very well, now they're dressing a little bit. They're not taking care of themselves, or you see some of the
Hygiene.
When it comes to hygiene, you're not brushing your teeth, you're not doing your hair. Always know that there's something going on within that individual, either you're a child or an adult. Withdrawing from others, you're socially isolated from others, so you're trying to stay away from other people at all times.
And this could be even your family members. Your family could be sitting together and having dinner downstairs, and you go and you grab your plate and you go to your room. So isolating from those even who you love.
Neglecting the responsibilities. Before you had a job, now you don't. You don't have the motivation to go out. You were in school, you're no longer in school. These are what some of the signs. Moving more slowly, you see that an individual is sleeping too much or sleeping too little. That's also possible. And then lastly, easily agitated or unable to settle, so you're constantly angry.
So the next one, I guess I'll go around this way, is the physical symptoms. So we tend to ask our clients, what is your energy like throughout the day? Do you feel tired? Do you feel like you have energy? And if you do feel tired, what do you do when you're feeling tired? Is it because you went to the gym and you feel tired, you had a long day and you feel tired? Or do you just wake up and you feel so tired, you feel like you don't want to do anything? Which also kind of connects to the lack of energy at schools with our kids. A lot of times when they get bad grades, they say, I just don't have the motivation, I don't have the energy to do the homework, to study for the exam. It just feels like it doesn't matter anymore. We also see that individuals who are depressed will either sleep a lot, or they will wake up multiple times throughout the night, or not sleep at all. And that's something we know is called insomnia, when you have a really difficult time falling asleep or remaining asleep. We will see patients gain 20 pounds in a span of a month and a half, or lose 20 pounds in a span of a month and a half. And that's either emotionally eating because you feel so depressed and upset, and everything that comes your way, you just shove it down your throat, or it's starving yourself because you're feeling so sad, you're feeling so depressed that you don't even enjoy the food that's in front of you anymore. Wali John already talked about the loss of motivation. We've mentioned substance use. A lot of individuals will turn to substance use, whether it's drugs or alcohol, to numb that pain. And a lot of individuals will talk about the pain that they're experiencing. Their head's hurting, their heart hurting, their stomach's hurting.
Yes, and then lastly, we just sum up the thoughts. That's basically frequent self-criticism. You're always looking down upon yourself. Impaired memory and concentration, so whenever somebody, let's say, told you, can you go ahead and get some groceries, A, B, and C, and then you go and you get A, B, but you forget to C, that's a part of your thought process where you're constantly thinking of what is worrying you and what is not working in your life. You have confusion and then thoughts of death and suicide. So now here, what does depression look like in the Muslim community? Okay? We have a page here too for us as well. In majority elders and less acculturated population, depression is experienced as a broken heart. These are symptoms that we describe of having heartaches and pain, but that's actually a form of depression that people don't realize. And then expressing physical pain instead of sharing psychological distress. Adapting a sick role, so basically complain of no enjoyment, no appetite, poor sleep, no energy, no interest, boredom, and then also impatience are also common.
Excuse me, why this is only in Muslims? We see that.
So we have other slides. It talks about the African American community, the Asian community. It's different in different communities. So that's why.
So what happens if we don't treat depression? So there is an increased risk of substance use. So you'll continue drinking that alcohol, or if you haven't before, you'll start. You'll continue using the drugs to numb out and not feel that pain anymore. You'll start having problems with your loved ones, your husband, your wife, your parents, your children. Because you're so unhappy, you might start pointing the finger at them and blaming them, or they might become frustrated with you and say, we don't know how to help you anymore. You're just sad all day. What are the reasons for you to be even sad? You have a roof, you have a car, you have a job. I don't understand, and maybe I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. So we see that happen. There's a negative impact on school and work. So kids who struggle with depression, suicidal thoughts, won't care about schoolwork anymore. They won't care about their future because they're struggling so much right now. So those grades don't matter anymore. Those college applications don't matter anymore. The grades go from A's to F's. And at jobs, people start going to work late. It doesn't matter that I'm supposed to be there at 9 o'clock because nothing in life matters anymore. And again, there's a high risk for suicidal thoughts, attempts, and possibly death.
Now, how do I know if somebody is suicidal? You have to look for certain cues, and we're going to go ahead and explain that as well. You have verbal expressions and then also behavioral warning signs. So some of the verbal expressions, common statements that people make. So like, I shouldn't be here. These are the statements that people like to hear. I shouldn't be here. I wish I could disappear forever when he or she died. I want to see what it feels like to die more. Always constantly thinking of death. I wish I were dead myself. I should run away. Again, trying to run away from people, right? If a person did this or that.
Would he, she die? It went down to this one, yeah.
Maybe if I died, people would love me. It's also another perception that, especially when teenagers, they think that when I commit suicide or when I try to kill myself, their testimonial, the ones that have survived, always would say, my parents are blaming me or my friends are blaming me, so it's better that I can kill myself. That way people will feel bad for you. The truth is, they'll feel bad for you for a week. It's just normal, right? Part of life has to go on. Then after that, people are not going to even remember you.
And if you commit suicide, how would you even know that somebody's going to feel bad for you? So that's like a faulty wiring, and something that we hear a lot our kids say is, I want to commit suicide, I want to take my life because then everyone's going to feel bad. And our question is, well, if you're not alive, how would you even know if anybody feels bad? And you're punishing yourself for that.
And then lastly, I'm going to kill. As we see, sometimes people, they try to kill other people.
So
We see a lot of that.
we see a lot
Yes,
of that.
we do.
Yeah.
We do.
Some behavioral warning signs. So if the person has tried to commit suicide in the past, that's a warning sign. Or if they, kind of express those thoughts that Wali John just shared of, life seems meaningless, I think about dying, I think about going to sleep and never waking up. If you're hearing this, you should take that as a sign. If they're expressing feelings of hopelessness or guilt, if they're using more substances, becoming less responsible and motivated, if they're talking and joking about suicide, and it's something that they've done more and more over time, if they're starting to give away possessions, if they're giving away their clothes, their cars, things that are very valuable, and without reason just saying, I don't need it anymore, I would take that as a sign that something's happening. And having several accidents resulting in injury, close calls, or brushes with dad. So it's almost like they're testing their life. If I go and, run across the freeway and just get crashed, that's a test to see if, will this kill me or not? So it's taking those as signs too.
How's everyone doing? Are you guys good?
Yeah.
Usually when you guys come to psychoeducation or any form of seminar, this is what happens. There's a lot of slides, we have to explain things into detail so it helps, right? So after we are done, you weren't able to capture anything, please ask this question.
Well, I have a question. I just wanted to ask you, is it okay for our audience to get some tea or
So we are
if anybody would
Later.
Later.
So this is what we're doing. We are close to the ending, so we'll go ahead and do like a 5-minute break, and then we come back and we're going to do the other two. Because if they go, then we'll move around and other people. Thank you for taking that into consideration. Further behaviors often seen in children. Preoccupation with death and violence do impact children. When it comes to TV, movies, drawings, books, at plays, music, a lot of children, they tend to express their feelings through poetry, they draw. There's been signs we have, when I used to do training for Judy Hirsch, they used to have invitation signs where children would draw their own death before they would take away their lives. That was a form of expressing their feelings and emotions, because again, what ends up happening here is that when you're younger, you don't have the capability to vocally share your thoughts. Or even if you do try to say anything, your parents say, oh, it's okay, don't. This is just a phase that you're going through. But in all reality, that individual is locked in their own head, so they try to express it some other way. Risky behaviors, jumping from high places, always getting injured, running into traffic. You've got self-cutting as well. So a lot of teenagers, if you look, they've always cut themselves. To be able to control some form of pain, or have some control in their life by cutting. School problems, a big drop in grades, falling asleep in class. Emotional outbursts or other behavior unusual from the student, wants to join a person in heaven.
That's a big one.
So that's another one where a lot of kids, they always say, I'm going to commit suicide so I can go to heaven.
Or
That's their perception.
Yeah, if somebody has passed away in the family, we were actually talking about this with a sister prior to coming here today, who was telling us a story about somebody in her family had passed away, and that individual had a sibling, and the sibling started acting in similar ways and saying, I want to die, I want to kill myself because my sister is probably in heaven and I want to go join her in heaven.
The themes of death and art, again, poetry, self-expression when it comes to you. So always please be mindful of that and be very involved with the children too. It's very important. Because the blues are usually there, but we... it was the form of expression, themes of death that they express through poetry, music.
So they might start
So they'll start writing.
So how can you help? So the most important thing that you can do when somebody is at risk is ask. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you having suicidal thoughts? Do you want to die? And what happens when they usually say yes? Do we look like that? Like we go into shock, like, oh my God, I shouldn't have asked that question now, I don't know what to say. So some of the questions that we can ask and maybe remember when those moments happen is, have things gotten so hard that you have thoughts of suicide? When you say you want to die, do you mean you're thinking of ending your life? Sometimes when people are going through a hard time, they can have thoughts of suicide. Is this something you've been thinking about? And just remembering that just because an individual might have suicidal thoughts doesn't mean that they're going to actually commit the action. But they may just feel like, right now, life is too hard. But I don't want to die. Yeah, I think about death, but I don't want to take away my life. So being able to distinguish the two. How far along are they down that plan of ending their life?
Absolutely. And that's usually, that was actually my face the first time around when somebody within session told me that I want to kill myself. So what ends up happening is that, what happens when somebody says, I want to kill myself? It's a shock.
You're
It's a shocking
overwhelmed.
moment when you're like, oh wow, he or she told me he's going to kill myself. If this was your first time experiencing something like this, you're going to be feeling a lot of stress. You're going to be feeling like, there's a heavy burden on you, and you want to share it with somebody. Or you feel trapped, like, do I share it with somebody? Do I not tell somebody? How do I help this individual? So our way of telling you now today is, how can you help? It's very simple. There's a couple of steps that we will go over, and then there will be more that Dr. Yama and Dr. Yassir will discuss about. But this is basically to tell you guys what should you guys do to not feel stressed.
And a lot of us sometimes, may think that if we listen to that person, if we talk to them about these suicidal thoughts, then we're encouraging that individual to act in committing suicide. But what we have seen from research and just personal experience is actually you're helping that person clarify their thoughts, connect to someone, and feel like that they matter.
So the answer is, if the answer is yes, if somebody does say yes, I want to kill myself, the easiest thing is to just breathe. Number one thing, relax. It's not our job. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, if somebody's suicidal, they'll still go ahead and kill themselves, okay? So at that moment, we also want you to feel comfortable and be calm, take a deep breath, and then ask the following questions or have an empathetic question.
Statement.
Yeah.
So we don't have time for a video, do we? Are we rushed on time? Okay.
Number two, after asking directly with an empathetic question, the best thing that you can do is just listen. That is what they want to do. Is first to ask an individual, are you trying to kill themselves? Then hear them out, because they're going to have a lot to talk about. So the reason why I also say that is, what allows us to communicate with other people in life? In general, if you meet somebody, what allows us to, have a longer relationship with an individual? Let's say I'm in the airport, I meet somebody, I meet thousands of people, but there's always one or two that if I find them, we talk. Creating a relationship, and within those relationships, what needs to happen? You trust. Good. Trust. Trust. Okay. What else?
Open.
Huh?
Decent.
Decent person. Yes.
There has to be an openness.
There has to be an openness. So all of these are good things, but they come secondary. Number one thing comes is that usually allows people to connect as commonalities. So if I'm staying at an airport and I know somebody is a Muslim, I'm like, hey, that's good, you're a Muslim, out of the majority. We have something to talk about. If I know this person lives in Orange County, another plus. Okay, I live in Orange County, where do you live? Now that's where the relationship starts. It's commonality. So people, when you do ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself? It helps them. It lets them know that there's somebody that does care, because you ask the question, are you thinking of killing yourself? So that creates a little spark to them.
And that's something we see a lot in our therapy rooms when we do work with both adults and kids. They kind of become surprised when we ask them to tell us more about their depression or their suicide thoughts or symptoms. They kind of go into this moment of oh, is it okay for me to talk about this? This isn't, like, I've been told my whole life that I shouldn't talk about this, it's shameful, things will get better. And so when you create space for them, you create space to understand them, and people love to be understood. That's a part of creating a relationship or creating a connection. It's not just the commonalities, but being able to understand each other, being able to validate one another and say, I see that you're going through so much pain, and it breaks my heart to see that. And maybe I can't fix it, but I'm here to listen. I'm here to be next to you and walk this path with you.
And again, listen to their reasons of wanting to die, and then allow the space for them to talk, because you might be the first person to hear them out. Usually if somebody says, no, we have a video which we will go ahead and maybe share with you guys, empathy versus sympathy. If you're sympathetic, if somebody says, I want to kill myself, it's okay, you're going to get better tomorrow. Go do something. Empathy is basically, staying there with them and saying, tell me more about it. Just hear them out. The more they talk about it, the more you understand. So as an individual, one of the problems that people have in today's world when they have psychological problems is that they don't talk to other people. So the more you talk about it, the more stress-free you are. If you don't talk about it with anybody, what ends up happening is you might even know this. Biologically, if you're sleeping, you'll start having nightmares. You'll start clenching your jaw. You'll have pain in your stomach. You get anxiety. So these are all psychological that affects you biologically as well. So please do remember this.
And so the last step is link the person who's struggling with depression or suicide to a trained adult, a counselor, a therapist, anyone that you know or don't know. You can look at resources online. You can call the 24-hour crisis line if you do catch your child or an adult in your life attempting to commit suicide. You can ask your local school for resources. Most schools have resources to help out kids with counseling, with therapy, with tackling bullying. And if you can't find any of those, then collaborate with another adult, because another adult might have those resources and be able to talk to you about them.
And these are the resources that we found here in San Francisco and towards Fremont. They've got the suicide prevention hotline. If you guys want to take pictures, you guys want to please hold on to this. If you guys come across anybody, please give them the resource. We put the Meal Center there. That's one of the organizations for the Muslim community that do provide services. If you feel comfortable, right? Some of us, we don't feel comfortable going to others, but we want to take our kids to somebody who's a Muslim therapist. And then these are other information sites as well. Even where I work, Genesis Medical Center, we do virtual therapy. So that means that even if you're here, I myself, John, we can go ahead and see you through computer. We can do telemedicine. So we can do our therapy through that as well. So please do know that as well.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions for empathy.
I'm going to talk a little bit Farsi as well, because most of our crowd is Farsi speaking. I don't know Pashto, sorry, but we can try Farsi and English together and try to express our message to everybody. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for supporting this event. And we hope to see more of these events so that in our society and in our community, we help people who are in this situation. And the most important thing, I think, is that we shouldn't have any, we discussed stigma before, any shyness, any shame in discussing an illness that we have. Suicide prevention and depression specifically, or even anxiety, afsardagi, anxiety, these kind of things. There's nothing wrong with to have that. It's like you have a cold or a cough, same thing. But you just have to get treatment for it, and there shouldn't be an attached stigma or an extra burden on your shoulders. So just like you would go to the gym to exercise, and most of us go, we exercise, we want our muscles, we want our health to be very good, we need to exercise, we need to do something so our mental health is in a normal and homeostatic position. Meaning that we have to pay attention to it. As a human body, you know, we have our mental state, and then we have our physical state, you have your psychological.
So for anxiety, what I mean is usually the families lack structure and the kids get very overwhelmed. Like let's just say an example would be, I want you to, let's say we're saying, I want you to clean your room. So for the kid, he doesn't know what that means. Or if it's a girl, she doesn't know what that means. Well, I did my bed, my room is clean. But maybe for the parent, it's not just that. It's clean your bed, vacuum the floor, do all these other things that I understand that in my mind I'm asking you, but I'm not saying it that detailed. I'm saying just clean your room. And then we become upset with that child because they're not following our directions. But in their mind, well, I did. I cleaned the room the way I thought I was supposed to. So something I like doing is creating more structure. Whatever we say, we create it very detailed, but we collaborate. These are my expectations of you. What are your expectations of me? How can I support you better in these areas? And so creating a dialogue between the two to make the child feel like they're part of the dialogue. It's not just you telling them what to do, what not to do, but allowing them to have a voice as well.
Just to answer that and also touch on bases on any advice for families who are suffering from mental health. And the gentleman here, Aslam said, he asked me a good question related to that too, which is also a generational gap situation that comes here. So I migrated here when I was 9, 10, okay? So I lived in Afghanistan, I lived in Peshawar, and then I came here. So I knew how the life situation was growing up with a family, with a community who would tell me how to do things, right? My parents wouldn't tell me. It would be my friends, it would be my uncles, my cousins. This is what you're supposed to do because this is part of the religion, the culture. And this is how we would take, and this is how I would make those decisions. So the kids that come here in the United States, it's a little different. Who's here for them? Is it their families? Some of us are not fortunate where we have our families around. We don't have our communities, you know, let alone not Afghan community, but we don't even have our Muslim communities close to us. So that becomes a barrier. As a parent, you yourself, at this moment, you were taught all those things and you're expecting the same thing from your children. But your children, they're clueless. So they get different answers and different scenarios from others. And this is where we also see a generational gap when it comes to parent and child communication. So I was telling Said that when I'm at home, I'm sitting in the middle. Now imagine there is a board, or I'm sitting down in a tennis game. You know, I'm like the ref in the middle. I hear my parents saying things to my younger siblings who are born here. They don't listen to them. They don't understand what my parents are telling them. For them, it's like, I don't care. Why are you telling me this? People are coming. I have to do this. Like, this is not how we were taught. But this means a lot for our parents, right? Representation, being able to listen to your parents when people come. Your children, on the other hand, are raised in a community that's very individualistic. They're taught to do things for themselves, to make them, you know, whatever you do it for yourself. So when they try to get across and tell the parents what they should do, the parents are having a hard time understanding, like, wait, why are you saying A, B, or C? Why are you questioning things this way? So this is where the problem comes. When I sit down and I see my siblings and my parents kind of go back and forth, I'm in the middle. I hear both sides and they're both right. I'll be honest, they're both right in their own ways because they're raised here. My siblings are raised here. This is part of their culture. This is part of their identity in certain situations and how they view the world. For my parents, it's very much different. And I also understand their view because I came from back home. So this is where parents and both the youth need to both understand that you have to have a gradual communication style when it comes to these specific matters. In America, the best thing you can do, and the key is communication. That's the most safest thing. Okay.
The second question was about supporting a family member and what you can do. آدم چی میتونم بکنه خود آدم وقتی که میفهمی که یک خانواده یا یک فامیل ممبر شما نیست دارن. Number one thing you can do is what you're doing right now, is when you're educating yourself. اول خود آدم آگاه باشه و یاد بگیره که signs and symptoms دارم که conference دارن. That's very good that you're doing that. So pat yourself on the back. And then what you do is when you're with the patient or with the person that's suffering, you need to validate their feelings. You can't tell them, oh, this is just minimal, you're going to get over it, life is good, look ahead. You need to validate their feelings, and once you do that, then you can encourage them to get treatment, whether it's through a regular doctor, primary care, or once they accept that they have the problem, then they can get treatment. And what you can do as a family member is encourage them. And when you encourage them, it means reminding them about their appointment, explaining to them that everything will be fine. It's a very common thing in this society. So you're a support for them. And then the support is continuous. It's not sometimes they'll have bad days. They'll have ups and downs, and you need to be there with your support for them. So it's very important that you understand this path, and then it'll be very easy for at least you, and then you'll be observing and helping and seeing how they do. I think that's the number one thing. And also make dua for them and for yourself, inshallah.
So remember earlier I was talking about asking people, how are you doing? A very somehow forgotten segment within our community are the elderly. And when we speak to the elderly, we think that all we need to ask them is if they have taken their medication, if they are feeling cold, they're feeling hot. It's almost like paying attention to their physical well-being, and that's it. That doesn't work and should not be the only thing that we inquire about when we speak to our family members. So please make sure that you do this. One thing that we can all do. The Quran says for people who want to live happily, the Quran says that آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. Do not undermine righteous deeds, especially the ones that we do for other people. In fact, there is an entire field that is based on this. Adler believes that if you want to be a whole person, so that you've got to belong to a community, and you have to do good to the people. So when people come in and they say that I'm depressed, you would say for the next 15 days, I want you to make somebody happy every day. And this patient came in when she said, I've never done that before, and he said, in your case, I want you to do it for 21 days. Now, remember this. In the city of Fremont, if you go to these places, the hospice and the hospitals, which segment of the population is most? Which ethnic background in Fremont? Afghans. Afghans. Our people. Now the question is, how often do people go there to visit these people? And you'll be told that that is not the case. A lot of people in these places, they say that we have not and we do not receive visitors. Allah, I can remember this hadith. It said that Ibn Umar was once in the masjid doing i'tikaf. I'tikaf is seclusion, being the guest of Allah in the masjid. When somebody walked in and he was not looking very good, he was not looking happy, and he said, what's going on? And he said that I have accrued so many debts and today's the day to pay, I don't have anything to pay. And Ibn Umar said, who did you borrow the money from? Let's go, I'll talk to that person. And they said that the man's face lit up. And as they're walking outside of the masjid, somebody reminds Ibn Umar and says, Ibn Umar, remember, you came to the masjid today with the intention of making i'tikaf, you can't leave. And Ibn Umar looked at him and he said, Uskut. He said, be quiet, he said. For I have heard the Prophet ﷺ say, لأن يمشي أحدكم في حاجة أخيه خير له من أن يعتكف 10 سنين. He said for you to walk with your brother to get something done for them is better in the estimation of Allah than being in the state of i'tikaf for 10 consecutive years. Because we have this idea as to what it means to be religious. And we think that it's excessive reading of the Quran and prayers, and these are things that you do on your own. But part of religiosity is how do we impact those who are around us. So please make sure that when you come to know these things, visit the people who do not receive visitors. Inquire as to which person has not gotten in, what are the issues there. One last point also is, I get asked a lot about this, Imam, when people come to the masjid, they bring in the death certificate. In the death certificate, it would say the cause of death. And if the cause of death is suicide, some imams, they look into the paper and say, suicide? I cannot do the prayers on this. Because in the hadith, one time a person killed themselves and the Prophet refused to do the prayers on them. And Imam al-Nawawi says that the Imam should not be the one leading the prayers on them. They're still Muslims, they're still believers. But please remember, we believe that 80% of the people who committed suicide are people who did so because of an untreated or an undiagnosed mental disorder. So these people were sick people. Are you following? Okay. Am I making myself clear?
Yes.
So even if I were told that somebody just committed suicide, I say, look, what was? You don't even need to ask, because I'm already told that 80% of the people who do so, they do so because they were not in the right mental state. So please, when people want to be religious, I don't know why. Sometimes it's sad, but we believe that religious means to be cruel. But please remember, if your religiosity is making you cruel and rude and judgmental, chances are you're not worshipping Allah, but we're worshipping our own ego. And that is not healthy. That is not how religious people are. Last point is about tough love with our community members. I really love this, by the way. I think the same way that we did mental health, I think we should also do a program on familial health. How do we make our families healthier? Would you all be willing to attend a course like this? Familial health, be it in the marriage or be it in the... And sometimes our family members are not on the same page as we are. As parents, sometimes we want to be more religious, but the family members are not there. Maybe because we've lived here for so long, our kids have picked certain habits, and it just becomes very tough. And we come with a mentality, and please forgive me, we come from a place that promotes tough love. And what ends up usually happening is that people see the tough and not the love. And it may work with some people in some cultures, but no one formula fits everybody. Give them tough love. You don't know my kids. I cannot tell you to give your kids tough love. I don't know you, I don't know them. And I cannot say because it worked with them, it's going to work with you. But we all know our family members. And with some of our own kids, you give them some tough love. With the others, you do this, with the others, you do that. Depending on what you're going to do. But generally speaking, I believe what the Prophet said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُعْطِي عَلَى الرِّفْقِ مَا لَا يُعْطِي عَلَى الْخَرَمِ. Allah grants through gentleness that which is not granted through foolishness. Gentleness. Gentleness. That is the prophetic tradition. Doesn't mean that you water down your deen, compromise your... No, you can still be all these things and you can still be gentle.
Any other questions?
Yes. I have this question for Shaykh, maybe you'll help us. We're talking about suicide. So we have a lot of suicide in Afghanistan.
Most of them, they're young people that they're committing that suicide. I don't know how much you know about the situation in Afghanistan and what's happening in most of these cities. They are the ones, their villages has been destroyed. They lost their families. they hurt, they have no other place, they cannot complain to the government. There is no other way. They are just looking for revenge. And then they are joining, going to some field or some, organization or whatever, that they brainwash them to join us, and for your revenge you can join us and go and kill yourself or commit suicide. Now, the question is about these black people. So what is your opinion?
So there is something that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said 34 years ago. He said that the most dangerous man in the world is the man who has nothing to lose. The most dangerous man in the world is the man who has nothing to lose. You took away my education, took away my future, took away my village, took away my pride, took away my dignity. There is absolutely nothing left for me. He said that the most dangerous man in the world is the man who has nothing to lose. And in some areas, it is literally a creation of a lot of young people who have nothing to lose. So, what happens when you are placed in this? It becomes a very fertile land for any kind of ideology, good or bad. And sadly, this is the situation. So I appreciate the work of Islamic Relief, for example. Because the idea is not just we're just going to give you food and what have you. I love it when people say that we're making sure that we're opening schools. We are doing some kind of ROP programs. We're teaching people to do this, teaching people to do that. Now people have something to look forward to. And that is why, in the Hadith, in the prophetic tradition, charity was never about just feeding people. He said that you give them so that they become self-sustaining. The man takes pride in having a job. The idea of going and being able to support your family. It's not just about money. It's just about the mental health of the individual. I'm able to work, I'm able to produce, I'm able to... There is so much that goes there. But of course, the other option is when you have nothing to lose, it also becomes a very fertile land for a lot of drug use. Because again, that is the case. People have got nothing to lose. So what happens is we've got to build that society not just in terms of giving people food to eat, but also something that would enhance their sense of humanity, especially for these young men and women. But that's the one thing that I wanted to leave here with. The most dangerous man in the world is the man who has nothing to lose. You create these men in these circumstances, and what you have a lot of chaos, you have a lot of violence, especially in a culture that is already hypersensitive about honor. The Afghan culture is very hypersensitive about honor. And when the culture is hypersensitive about honor, then it becomes very prone to violence and chaos. How do you solve problems? And as a result, you see what you see. And please keep in mind that this is only one aspect of the culture. It does not define the entire culture. There is a lot more into Afghanistan and Afghans than just this segment. But this is the segment that makes most noise and gets most attention. How do you explain 62 people being killed during Friday prayers this last Friday? Isn't that what happened in Afghanistan? How do you convince somebody that this behavior is actually holy? How do you do that? How does somebody go and goes, I am going to kill worshippers as they are praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do you do that? There is a level of stupidity, ignorance, whatever the case is. If you are able to convince people to do that, you have some great psychologists to do this. But it also tells us as to what might happen if these issues are not addressed. May Allah keep us all safe, Ya Rabbi, and bring peace to the people of Allah and everywhere else.
Question?
questions, folks?
My question is to the doctors there. And I understand that serotonin is something in the brain, with a lack of serotonin make you depressed, really depression. But the question is that the serotonin bring the depression or depression cause the serotonin. Which one is first?
So the question is about serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, and it's something that has to be in a balance in your brain, or you will get, with reduced amounts of it, then you get depressive symptoms. So he asked whether depression causes serotonin decrease or serotonin decrease causes depression. So typically, serotonin, there's precursors of serotonin, things that make your body make more serotonin. So if there's a lack of serotonin in your neurotransmitters in your brain, then we see depressive symptoms. If you have depression itself doesn't decrease your serotonin. So if someone has a traumatic event, it doesn't drop serotonin. It increases your stress hormone, which is cortisol. So anytime you're stressed, even that study that I told you about, when you say no to a child, their stress level goes high, and there's neurological changes that they see in the MRI. So it increases the stress level, the cortisol increases, but the serotonin doesn't drop right away. Over time, if they have low amounts of serotonin, then they see depressive symptoms. So that's what it is.
Let's see the families together.
Yeah, thank you very much. This program is very helpful. We learn a lot. My question is that social media has a lot to do with depression because when you watch the news, every day is bad happening to all over the world. It's not only Afghanistan, it's the United States, and whatever happening right now in the United States is very depressing. So if we don't watch the news, it's, for me personally, I have to watch the news because I can't live without it. But when you watch it, then it causes depression or stress or loss of sleep or like Timmy John crying. So what should we do about this? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question about the depression itself. Is depression a disease? Was it labeled as a disease? And if it's a disease, when it becomes by doctors, when do you actually diagnose the patient as having the disease?
صور بفارسی هم میگم کنید دیگه الان ولی جان رمضان وقتی که تشریح میکردن در مورد از این کسایی که به اینا مراجعه میکنن اینا گفتن ما براتون نمیگیم که شما چی کنید یعنی مثلا من میگیم که اگر باید شام دارم یا سرباز براشون نمیگیم که این کار کو این کو اما مادرم فارسی مادر به تو بگو اینا گفتن که ما پس همین چی کنیم. The question is, as you also mentioned when I was in your workshop, you said we are not telling people we are coming to us for counseling and we are telling us that they have depression. We don't tell them what to do. So if you don't tell them what to do, what do you do? Just if you are just listening to them,
does it have to be a psychologist to, talk to the psychologist or just a stranger? Or you can do the same thing with your parents, your friend, your sister, or somebody else. So what's the difference in it?
I'll start off first. So I'll talk about depression as a disease. Well, number one, we come to your question first. Us as therapists, we do not, advise people on what they should do or what they shouldn't do. We help them see through what decisions do they want to take in terms of bettering themselves or making those life changes. Because at the end of the day, it is not our life. Any decisions you make, you're responsible for it. So we cannot give you guys suggestions or we can't tell you what to do. We just help you guys in terms of finding ways and different ways of taking different options. And I hope that helps.
I want to say a little bit about that actually. Hold on, let me get my thoughts together. So what I would like to say to that is we create space. And other individuals can create space for that person too, who's struggling with depression or anxiety or any other disorder. But what tends to happen is they don't know the right questions to ask and they get drained. So if you have a friend who's struggling with depression and you create space for them, that person may become comfortable and only talk to you about their depression and you become overwhelmed. You start losing interest. You don't want to hang out with this person anymore because their mood impacts your mood. So every time you're around them, you burn out. That's something we call compassion fatigue. So this is why therapists step in because when that happens, we know how to handle that. We also don't tell them what to do, but we tend to ask them this question that you guys can all ask, which is, what have you tried to do about your depression in the past? And if tomorrow you woke up and your depression wasn't there anymore, what would change in your life? What would your life look like? If you got out of bed, how would you know your depression is gone? Great, you listed all of those things, now engage in them. So with depression, the way we diagnose it is if the symptoms are present for more than 2 weeks and they're like on a daily basis for most of the day, that's when we give the disorder. I don't call depression as a disease, and that's me personally, because that word disease is very stigmatized. It has a very negative connotation. It makes an individual seem like you can't touch them, you can't be around them, and it brings shame to them. So personally, I don't look at depression as a disease. I look at it as something that happens in life to everyone, and that's okay. It's a human component.
Medically, it's a disease. Yep. So medically, doctors can tell you what to do. So I tell people, don't do this, do this. Their profession does come to advise people directly and say, don't do this and do this. And the doctors will tell you, stay away from this, do this. It's very true. Depression is a disease. It's defined in different books, the DSM-4, and there's another one that came out recently. The 5th one came out. So it is a disease. It is defined by the specific symptoms over a specific time period. If it occurs after that time period, then it's defined as a disease, a disorder, which if you go and you have insurance or Medi-Cal, there's a CPT code they pay for your treatment. They have to define it as a disease in order for them to treat you for it. Otherwise, you couldn't go to a psychiatrist to get medications. So it is defined as a disease. Do you want to tackle the social media question? So social media, just my input that Yassir on the news, as you say, in Farsi, my brother growing up, he would call khabara kharaba. haraba, meaning that the news here, it's all about bad stuff. Harab means bad in Farsi. So all the news that you get here, the majority of the news in corporate media in the U.S., it's there to create anxiety and scare the masses. It's going to scare you to go buy stuff. It's going to scare you to, be kind of have that anxiety. So I tell people, if you want to have quality news, get away from corporate U.S. media, because it's corporately backed and there's a mission and vision for the masses. So you would take maybe NPR's a little better, maybe the BBC's a little better, maybe something from abroad is much better. Now through the internet, you can get your news from different sources. But corporate U.S. media, it's bad for your health because it's always about sensationalistic things that are happening, and they create fear in the masses. This is well known, it's been studied, many people have written papers on this. So I would stay away from that because it does cause anxiety. I would pull the plug. Only do your news once a day. You don't have to constantly know what's going on. Nothing's going to change. Yeah, and then the other important thing is your own sphere of influence. Okay, let's assume you know all the news in the world. What's going to happen? How are you going to affect that? You're not. It's going to put you in a place where you're going to feel helpless and hopeless, and all these things are happening. For the history of time, from the beginning of man, people have been dying, people have been starving, there's been tragedy in the world from the beginning of time. Just because now you hear about it in 30 seconds after it happens, it's not healthy for the human mind. It's not. It's just, that's my opinion on that.
So even if you try to listen to NPR only or anything like that, last Friday you could not escape the fact that 62 people were killed in Afghanistan praying activists. So you could not escape that. But the question is, what happens to us as a result of hearing this? So for example, feeling bad is normal. I hope we feel bad. Feeling angry is normal. I hope we feel angry. And feeling frustrated, incapacitated, paralyzed, and feeling angry at the people, feeling sorry for the victims. All of this is natural, and you don't let anybody take that away from you. So now the question though becomes, we watch the news and we live it and we don't do anything else. And that's where the problem comes from. Okay? And that is why in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was constantly talking about do good. With all the evil that is around us in the world, you can't just be watching and being angry at it, and that will not solve it. So people say that make sure that you differentiate between two circles. Our circle of concern and our circle of influence. So our circle of concern is the entire globe. Maybe Afghanistan, maybe my country, maybe my this, maybe my that. But that's our circle of concern. This is what I'm concerned about. And then you pay attention as to where is my circle of influence? Where can I make the difference? And this way, I know what's happening globally, but I also know what I am able to do locally. So when you hear about these people that just died in Afghanistan, I wish that we would reach out to family. I wish that we would do something with the elderly that I was talking about earlier. Maybe we can go and visit them. Maybe I heard somebody is sick, maybe. So as we hear these things, I think it's very important that we also have an outlet to do something that is right, where we feel that we're making a difference. So suppose that there's a story. We are in the markaz of Khalilullah Ibrahim alayhi salam. So they said that it's a beautiful story. So they say that when the Namrud lit up the fire to burn Ibrahim alayhi salam, they say that this little ant went to the sea and brought with her a drop of water. So people looked at the ant and they said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm going to put off the fire. Remember, this is an ant, so how much water is the ant taking? So people said, with that, like really you're going to do this? She said, I know My drop will not put off the fire, but it will make it very clear as to where I stand. It will not put off the fire, but it will make it very clear as to where I stand. And sometimes we miss out on this part. It was just the drop, but it was also very testimonial as to where do we stand. So please, inshallah, just do that. If your friends come to you and they tell you that they're depressed, remember what we want you to do is that we want you to be a middleman between them and the professionals, between them and the doctor. In the process, maybe you hear them out. Maybe you provide them with that safe space. Maybe you let them talk. Maybe you do this. And then you start making these suggestions. And remember, the risk that we keep taking is that sometimes the suggestions can be very overwhelming. So someone says, I am very depressed. Why don't you go to college and take some classes? That might be a beautiful solution, but if that person is not ready for it right now, they're not ready for it right now. So what we want to do is that we want to make sure that we become the middleman between these people and the professionals. The different therapists have different approaches. Some people are afraid of giving a direct advice. Some of us are not afraid of giving a direct advice. Also, play with language is important. Is this person depressed, or is a person with depression? Because sometimes, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us, that believers have to be careful, deliberate, and thoughtful with their words. Which words do you choose? As we know in psycholinguistics, they can have an impact on us. So what suits this person best? Is that they are people with depression? Are they sick with depression? Do they have a depressive disorder? So the language is important, but also the label sometimes is important because we need to build the insurance company or what have you. But the hope is that we will be respectful as to which language we choose with our clients.
Alrighty, folks, so what we're going to do is we will go ahead and take questions, but after Maghrib prayer. Just so we can let you guys know that you guys can come individually and ask us questions because we are, concluding with our program. So before we do that, again, thank you so much for Sheikh Yassir Fazaga, Dr. Mujadidi, and before we do that, let's have Sister Amy Omar and Ustaz Mujadidi come over and do the closing remarks, please.
Thank you very much. چون با نماز مغرب نزدیک شده بخیر نماز به جماعت ادامه میکنیم. از میمانای عزیز تشکر اینجا آمدید. از دکتر سید اشرف که رئیسی مرکز هستن از ما خواهش میکنم اگر زحمت نباشه اینجا نزدیک پیش ما بیاید بخیر که برای میمانای عزیز خود با خودشان گل هستن یک دستگل انشاءالله از طرف صدای حق خواستین بشون تقدیم کنیم. تشکر.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.